Rabbi Manis Friedman. Oh boy, thank God it's Tuesday. So today the topic of the conversation, and of course we have all the reason in the world to speak about it, is I'm insane and I'm proud seems to be the motto of our times. We are going through this Pride Month, and not 100% what people are so proud of, but whatever we're seeing that is being displayed, and it is something that people seem to be extremely happy about, who are doing it, and there are so many people who are watching it who find it extremely entertaining. But what we do see on the streets of so many cities of our country is parades of strangely dressed people. We have middle-aged men with beards and red bob wigs. We have massive built black guys with beard, with blonde dreadlocks. We have some people where clothing is 100% optional. Very happy to display all our privates to children, and it seems to make a lot of people very happy. So the question is, why are we so happy about insanity in our day and time? And there's going to be more questions that I'm going to ask down the line as well.
Well, first of all, I think there are more interesting subjects. I don't know why they get so much attention. It's really wrong. But it's like all the news. The news is determined to make people lose respect for themselves and for the world and for existence and for... It's just demoralizing. And really, you know, when President Nixon said, "I am not a crook," who was he trying to convince? If you have to say it, then there's something wrong. If they call it pride, it's probably because they're embarrassed. It's the big lie, the big cover-up. They're embarrassed. They're degrading themselves. They know it, but they can't handle it. So they go to the opposite extreme and call it pride. There's no pride. There's no pride. There's just vulgar exhibitionism, and there's nothing to be proud of. So it's not pride. It's really the opposite.
Rabbi Friedman, but why does it get so much support? It gets support from the government officials. It gets support from the general public. People bring children to see grown men naked and women and find it to be fun and entertaining. I understand people who are doing it are trying to prove a point. But what about this general public support that they're getting from all walks of life?
It's a good question. But pride, it's not. There's nothing to be proud of. Nothing. So pride is definitely the wrong word. It actually reveals the fact that it's embarrassing and degrading, and that's why you have to call it pride. Otherwise, you'll admit the truth. Look, we're so accustomed by now to the big lie, the fake news, the propaganda. So almost anything that is popular and making a lot of noise, you know that the truth is the exact opposite of what they're calling it. It's no longer surprising. We've been talking about years of surprise. You know, how long can you be surprised over the same thing? Okay, we got it. You're lying, you're faking, you're bluffing, you're distorting the truth. It was shocking for the first 10 times. But it's not shocking anymore. It's so transparent. If you're calling it pride, it's because you're ashamed. It's so obvious.
Rabbi Friedman, but should we, I mean, there's still always there's a children aspect. And the parade that was in New York, the people who marched, it's all over the internet, it's been recorded. The motto was, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. And yet I would think that parents would just grab some sharp objects and, go at it. But it seems like it didn't really make any kind of an impression on anybody except a lot of talk on social media.
But even that, I don't know how much to believe. Parents are bringing their kids. I'm sure there are some crazy people doing that. But most parents, like 90%, are horrified. And they did not bring their children. They won't expose their children. Everything about it is a lie. It's endless. Endless falsehood. So most parents are horrified. Thank God for that. Otherwise, it'd be time to leave this country.
It seems to be a world pandemic. And it seems, if I was to make an observation, I would think that the insanity is the new pandemic. And the question is, how do we get this one under control, and how we, don't expose ourselves to it, don't become infected by it, because it's being pressured from all sides. Through the media, it's being pushed on us. Through politics, it's being pushed on us. So, and it is increasing. I mean, if I was to compare the intensity of this pride from last year to this year, I would think it's intensified.
Oh, yeah. It has to. Every lie has to keep intensifying. Otherwise, people will start to see through it. So, yeah, there's nothing new in that arena. What's surprising and a little worrisome is the tolerance. Not only tolerance, condoning. Okay, I won't expose my kids to it. Other than that, it's okay. You have no compassion for these people who are completely insane? You're going to make believe it's a pride parade? That's so insensitive. No, the legitimate question is, what if, God forbid, the parent of the people marching and doing this, how are they supposed to feel? It's their children doing this. Grown children. I don't know how a parent would survive the embarrassment. This is your child who you sent to college. This is who you raised. That must be so painful. In fact, it is probably so painful that they have no choice but to play along. Otherwise, they just have to disown their kids. It doesn't seem to be too much gray area there. So I would hate to be in that position. And I feel really the pain of the parents. They probably blame themselves and wonder where they went wrong and how could all this be happening to their children. They were so cute when they were young. They were so innocent. And now this? Very painful.
Rabbi Friedman, but the question is, how as a society we're so tolerant of this? I mean, how did this insanity, first of all, I mean, it seems to be mass insanity. How does mass insanity happen? And how are we as a society so tolerant of it? We seem to want to fight anything that is wrong. Well, we try to. I don't know how successful we are. But here we're not even trying to combat it. Why and how can we?
The problem lies in the word tolerance. We are a very tolerant society, that's true. And that's a compliment. It's a virtue. But what exactly does tolerance mean? So there's this mother, years and years ago, when this was not so popular, a mother said to me, I reject the Torah. I said, ooh, that's a strong statement. What does that mean? She says, I have to, because my son is gay. And if I have to choose between him and the Torah, then I reject the Torah. Very, very motherly, but very mistaken. She's saying, the Torah says that my son is sinning. I have to support my son. So I'm going to support him and reject the Torah, because I cannot support the Torah and reject my son. Is that tolerance? No, it's intolerance. Sadly. It's intolerance because if I should recognize or believe that my son is sinning, I would reject him. That's intolerance. By rejecting the Torah instead, you're not being more tolerant. You're just changing the facts. Tolerance means, oh, I know my son is sinning. I know it's against the Torah. But he's my son, and I tolerate him. In other words, I tolerate what is wrong with my son. But to say there is nothing wrong, that's not tolerance. That's just tampering with the evidence. So, real tolerance means I disagree, I disapprove, I completely condemn this behavior. But a human being is a human being. That's called tolerance. If I have to march with pride, then we're dealing with an intolerant society. So how should it be? A society should have very clear, strong, non-negotiable principles. Right is right and wrong is wrong, and there's no playing with that. And no matter how much I love you, when you're wrong, you're wrong. And when you're bad, you're bad. That doesn't mean I don't like you. That's tolerance. So, in our desire to be tolerant, we've perverted the whole idea. And instead of tolerance, we're ending up with intolerance. Nothing can be wrong. Nothing can be criticized. Nothing can be rejected. You can't have an opinion against anything except intolerance. You can be intolerant of intolerance. But other than that, You can't be against anything. So it's a shallow charade. We're calling it tolerance, but it's not.
Rabbi Friedman, do we have a chance of combating it? I mean, does it have to be like a societal movement? Does it have to come individually? I mean, realistically, it seems that we as a society build this together. How do we break it up? Do we want to break it up? Are we ready to break it up, or are we happy to continue playing along with everything that is going on? I'm not even sure. I don't know where we stand anymore.
Has there ever been a society with this kind of lack of values?
Yeah. If we go back in Torah and in history, there were a lot of very immoral societies.
And they didn't last very long.
No.
So it's not, should we do something about it? It's going to end. Because it all leads to death. It's all a death theme. All of it leads to death. Starting with abortion. I think that, if I had to trace it back, when did we become enamored with dying? When did death become more acceptable than life? Because that's really what it is. As a society, or that segment of society, is committing a slow suicide, and they know it. And they like it. So it starts off with abortion, and then it becomes gender issues. The result, of course, is that women who could have had babies won't be able to anymore because they massacred themselves. All of it, every project, it all leads to the opposite of life. Birth control, and it all is like, what can we do to destroy life? Assisted suicides, just everything that has been popular in the last 20 years was headed for death. So this is not going to continue, even if we do nothing. The question is, what's going to be left? Who's going to be left? So really, the question or the campaign should be, who is pro-death? Who is committing a slow suicide? And who wants to survive? If you want to survive, you have to start to live. And to live, you have to know what life is for. This is the result of not knowing why we're here. So it starts off with permissiveness. I don't know why I'm here. I might as well experiment, like in the 60s. What was the popular slogan? Try it, you'll like it. So what? Right, wrong, up, down. Try it, you'll like it. It's fun. It completes your personality. It opens you up to new. And then, of course, the psychedelics. It was all a desperation to live, because we didn't know why we're living. The desperation can't last forever, so eventually we started to give up. Okay, so life is not so great. Oh, if life is not so great, maybe death is. Very sad. Excuse me. Yeah. So now the question is, who wants to live? It's actually a quote in Tehillim, in Psalms. Mi ha'ish hechafetz chayim. Who is left who wants to live? If you want to live, come, let's talk. Let's find out what life is about. If you don't really want to live, go along with what's happening. Death will be the result.
Rabbi Friedman, I'm sorry. It's just what we're faced with is we're really faced with for the first time, I think, ever. I mean, we knew how to deal with wars. We had to fight, or we had to hide, or we had to evacuate. We knew how to deal with communism. We had to find a country that didn't have communism so we can, have a life there. But now this is a worldwide pandemic. It's psychological, it's physical, it comes in so many different shapes and forms. I don't think you just identified a lot of them, but I don't even think this is all of it. I think there is more. So how do we actually physically save ourselves in this particular situation in our life, in our time?
Well, look, this is why I feel so bad for the parents who still want life and they watch their children killing themselves. There's no middle ground. The middle ground has disappeared. It's life or death. Which also goes back to something the Torah says, I place before you today the choice between good and life, evil and death. Choose life. It has never been so clear. It has never been so, always wondered, why does God have to say choose life? What, does he really think we're going to choose death? If you have a choice between life and death, who's going to choose death? So why does God have to say choose life? It was a mystery. But now it's so clear. If you don't know the purpose of life, then you choose death. Because life without purpose is death. So instead of focusing on how bad the bad is, which I believe the bad people know how bad it is, and they're just covering it up with layers of pride. Instead of focusing on how bad it is, we got to really start promoting purposeful life. I mean, they're almost synonymous. Purpose and life and purpose is the same thing. To be alive means you pursue your purpose. If you're not pursuing your purpose, you're not alive. It's a slow suicide.
Rabbi Friedman, it seems like in this past maybe year intensively, we've been doing a good job in identifying the problem, in revealing the truth about what is happening in the world. Now, to counter it, it seems, to raise the good bar up, it seems to be a lot more challenging than just to point out where the problem is and identifying it. So how do we take it to that next level? Who is going to be taking it to the next level? Is it possible to take it to the next level?
The quickest, most practical, most powerful antidote is mitzvahs. If you do the mitzvah because God created the world for that purpose, That is the most powerful, the most visible, the most tangible expression of life. Not only do I believe that life has a purpose, I'm doing it. I'm not preaching it. I'm not wishing it. I'm not intellectualizing about it. I'm doing it. That's the best. So if a man puts on tefillin, if you give tzedakah every day, a coin in the charity box, you light Shabbos candles, you make Shabbos a little different than the rest of the week. You're careful what you eat. That's it. You're doing it. You're living the purpose.
Well, that would be for the Jewish people, but what about everybody else?
For everybody else, there are 7 commandments. Anything you do to make God's world better, more livable, more practical, more enjoyable, you are serving your purpose. So honoring your parents, giving charity, recognizing God every now and then, like twice a day. I was speaking about this a lot lately. Now that we see that the question really is not heaven or hell, the question is life or death. That's really what it boils down to. It's sanity or insanity. That's it. People wake up in the morning. We have a mitzvah that before you even get out of bed and before you say anything to anyone, you first thank God for another day of life, which means another day of purpose. If the entire world, Jews and non-Jews, everybody, would wake up in the morning, tomorrow morning, and just say, thank you. I didn't create myself. I don't give myself life. Whoever is giving me life, I'm grateful. This world would be such an incredibly beautiful place. Just that. Just that. On the other hand, if there is a single human being who can wake up and jump out of bed and not realize what happened and not even say thank you, this is a sick world. We're not talking religion anymore. We're talking sanity. If you can wake up in the morning and it means nothing to you other than a cup of coffee, you're not healthy. You're not healthy. You're not sane. It's crazy. Children who take their parents for granted, who feel no obligation, no compulsion to say thank you, to acknowledge that they were given life and they were protected and fed and housed and nothing. What would you call that? A non-religious child? Or would you call that a crazy child? You're out of touch with reality. You don't notice what's going on. You can't even acknowledge that somebody is taking care of you every day. It's disturbed. It is unnatural. So as long as there is a single human being anywhere in the world who wakes up in the morning and feels no need to say thank you, this world is disturbed. It's a crazy world. If everybody would simply say thank you, not change their entire lifestyle, Just this one thing. Start your day with a little admission. I didn't create the world. I didn't create myself. I did nothing. And yet I was given life and I have a life. Shouldn't there be a thank you in there somewhere? And even if you don't believe in God, but you know you're not God, so it would be beautiful if you would simply say, whoever God is, and like to whom it may concern, whoever you are, I'm grateful because I'm not God. That would be sane. That would be normal. That would be thoughtful. That would be meaningful. That would be sanity. That's the antidote. Just sitting around and being shocked over and over again about how bad, how crazy, how okay, we get it. It is crazy and it leads to death. Now, what do you want to do about it? Say thank you in the morning. Teach your children to say thank you in the morning. These parents whose children are marching down the streets without their clothes. The parents should say to their children, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that God gave us an opportunity to serve him. End of sentence. Let the children wonder, which God served what? Good. That'll be a good conversation. But don't start with a philosophy. Start with a fact. I didn't create any of this. I'm enjoying it. I got to thank somebody. Beginnings of sanity.
Rabbi Friedman, thank God it's Tuesday. And thank God we hear these words of wisdom from you that put things in perspective and give us direction. Thank you for everything you're doing for our community and for the world. We really, really need it. And now we just need to hear this more and more and more. We need to be reminded of.
Yeah. So let me clarify or back this up.
Sure.
There's a famous writer, Herman Wouk, passed away a few years ago. Very, very popular writer. Some of his books were turned into mini-series on television. He was in his 80s when he wrote one of his last books. And in the epilogue, he writes, my books have featured my grandfather, the hero in my life. So Zaidi has been very much in the news. But the truth is, it wasn't about Zaidi, it was about Papa. It was Papa who introduced me to Zaidi and told me to study with Zaidi. So all my life, really what I've wanted all my life is to be like Papa. This man is in his 80s. He was far more popular, far more successful, far more wealthy, far more famous than his father. And his grandfather was a dramatic figure in his life and his world, and he writes about him, and it's all the excitement. And at 80 years old, he says, let's be normal. Let's be sane. It's my father. I owe him everything. That is not religiosity. Honor your father and mother is one of the 10 commandments. But we now see You can call it commandment, you can call it mitzvah, you can call it suggestion, you can call it good advice. Basically, it's the only way to be normal. And of course, the same is true with the Creator. If I'm not the Creator, and I know that for sure, I've really given it a lot of thought, and I have found valid proof that I am not the Creator. So now I'm convinced that I didn't create the world. Well then, be sane and thank whoever did. Otherwise, you'll end up marching down the street without your pants on.
Rabbi Friedman, thank you. Thank you for this amazing advice. I hope everybody who's been listening or who will hear this program later on online will take this advice to heart, because this is the sanest advice we can have in our days, in our lives today. So thank you so much. And thank you for everything you're doing and for allocating this precious time to our community and to making us better. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.